let's begin with verse 1 in James chapter 2. And I'm reading this paragraph from the Message, and I love how it's worded. My dear friends, and whenever James starts off with my dear friends or my dear brothers and sisters, you can be sure he's getting ready to spank them. My dear friends, don't let public opinion influence how you live out our glorious Christ-originated faith. And then he gives this as an example. If someone enters your church wearing an expensive suit and a street person wearing rags comes in right after him, and you say to the man in the suit, the man who's all dressed up, you say to the man that looks nice, sit here, sir. This is the best seat in the house. And either ignore the street person or say, better sit here on the back row. Haven't you segregated God's children and proved that you are judges who can't be trusted? Now, let's talk about this. I think you've noticed this. Maybe it's happened to you. Maybe you've judged others by this. But I think we've all either judged or been judged by one of several things. Sometimes we are judged by our appearance. We often judge people based on their looks. Appearance is everything in our society. The second area that we often judge people is by their ancestry. We judge people according to their nationality and an ethnic background, and even their race. Sometimes we discriminate on age. Have you ever been told that you were too young? Have you ever been told that you're too old? What about this one? We judge people according to achievements. Our society gushes over winners, athletes who win championships, athletes who win the gold, who win the cup, who win the series, who win the bowl. But most often, I look at where we are here in Edmond, Oklahoma. I think most often our society judges people based on affluence. James says a few things about that kind of discrimination. He says, first of all, it's unchristian. And in the opening verse of chapter 2, James says, my dear brothers and sisters, practice your faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ by not favoring one person over another. Discriminating, showing prejudice or favoritism just isn't the way of Jesus, because he treated everyone with honor and dignity. Romans 2:11 simply says, God does not show favoritism. Number 2, discrimination is unchristian, and second, it's unreasonable. Look at what James says in these verses. Verse 5. Listen, my dear friends, God chose the poor people of this world to be rich in faith and to possess the kingdom which he promised to those who love him. But you dishonor the poor. Who are the ones who oppress you? Now, this is important. Who are the ones who oppress you and drag you before the judges? Well, James says it's the rich. They are the ones who speak evil of what good name which has been given to you. And then it's unloving. Look at what James says in verse 8. This royal law is found in the Scriptures. And what's the royal law? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you obey this law, you're doing right. Why is it called the royal law? Because if we obey that law, if we love our neighbor as we love ourselves, we're going to keep all the other laws. Galatians chapter 5, verse 14 says this, for the whole law can be summed up in this one command, love your neighbor as yourself. 1 John 4:20 says, how we treat others shows how much we love God. Look at it. It says, if anyone boasts, oh, I love God, but we go right on hating our brother and our sister, thinking nothing of it, we're liars. Harsh words. Look at these last verses in James chapter 2, verse 9. But when you show prejudice, you commit sin, and you violate this royal law of love. Whoever breaks one commandment is guilty of what? Of breaking the law. You see, how many laws do you have to break to be a lawbreaker? Well, you just have to break one. How many crimes do you have to commit to be considered a criminal? Just one. For the same God, verse 11, who said, you must not commit adultery, also said you must not murder. So if you murder someone but do not commit adultery, you have still broken the law. So we must both speak. Here it is again, being doers of the word, not just talkers of the word or hearers of the word. So we must both speak and act in every respect like those who are destined to be tried by the perfect law of love. You see, as followers of Jesus Christ, we have no right to discriminate because we follow the royal law of love. I want our church to be followers of that law. A church that does not discriminate. A church full of people that loves others as much as they love themselves. I believe this, loving churches are attractive churches. Loving churches are growing churches. Love reaches people. And to be a church that doesn't discriminate, I believe there's three things we've got to do. Here's what the Bible tells us. First of all, we've got to accept everybody. We must accept. Now, let me be clear. When I say we must accept everybody, that doesn't mean that everybody qualifies to be an elder of the church. That doesn't mean everybody qualifies to even be a member of the church. But we must be accepting to everyone who comes within the doors of this house of God. Romans 15:7 says, so accept each other just as Christ has accepted you. Then what happens? Then God's going to be glorified. Then second, I think we've got to not only accept everybody, we've got to have an appreciation for everybody. Philippians 2:3 says this, don't be selfish, don't live to make a good impression on others. Instead, what do? Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. One more thing. I believe we've got to affirm everybody. You know what, in the church, we've got to learn how to affirm sinners. Now, we're not affirming sin, but we're affirming sinners. Because, think about it, we're all sinners saved by God's grace. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says this, speak encouraging words to one another, build up hope, so you'll all be together in this. No one left out, no one left behind. I want Edmond First Church of the Nazarene to be known as a loving church. After all, Jesus said they will know you are my disciples. How? If you love one another. So when a brother or sister stumbles, don't criticize, sympathize. If there's one place in the world where people can receive mercy and be affirmed, it ought to be in the church of Jesus Christ.